Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope. I'm totally not losing my mind with Venus. So I'm recording this technically as you're watching it in the past, but right now I'm talking about future you. So there's kind of this little inception thing going on. Anyway, when you're watching this, Venus will already be retrograde, but current Cameron in this moment, Venus is not retrograde. It's still on top of Pluto, and I'm totally not losing my mind. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's totally cool. Everything's great. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I'm sure last week was totally crazy for everybody. That full moon, again, like I still haven't even had the full moon experience yet, and the full moon's like right on my Mars, so I'm not looking forward to it. But anyway, last week was really crazy. This week isn't necessarily crazy, but we do have the Saturn-Uranus square, so don't necessarily expect it to be like an easy week, like we have like the week off or anything. Let me go ahead and pull up the Transitarium. We're starting this week on Monday with, honestly, this week is so boring. I have to make the Mercury-Uranus trine a highlight. That's how little. Also, the Sun ingress into Capricorn is a highlight because this week is so boring. I don't want to actually, I take that back. I don't want to say boring. It's just uneventful comparative to last week. Wow, why am I so like digitized right now? Anyway, we start the week off on Monday with Mercury trining Uranus as well as the moon trining Neptune. So let's go and pull this up. There we go. The big thing with this on Monday is again, not a lot's kind of going on this week. It's these little tiny little details. And I think as Mercury's in Capricorn, it's still not necessarily in shadow yet. But as we kind of have everything focused on this area, right? Venus is now retrograde there. Mercury's there. Mercury will be retrograding in Capricorn. The sun's about to ingress into Capricorn. There's a lot of, mental focus on, systems, efficiencies, or efficiency. God, I cannot speak today. Mercury and Capricorn, being rational, being, dry, being, getting straight to the chase, right? I think as Mercury trines Uranus, if you're looking, I think if you're trying to plan stuff or reorganize stuff in your life, like Mercury trining Uranus is a very inventive, very light bulb kind of moment. It's not really the biggest deal, but I think it's kind of interesting that we do have the Mercury-Uranus trine during the Saturn-Uranus square. And maybe Mercury and Capricorn trining Uranus is like, oh, quick solution. Oh, or, I know about this plan, or we could do things this way. And I wonder how much the Mercury-Uranus trine of kind of like getting that intuitive insight as kind of doing something random kind of triggers the Saturn-Uranus square, where it's like, have you ever done something where, let's say, it came up in your head very quickly, so you acted on it because you thought it was a good idea, and then you did it, and then you go, shit, that was not a good idea. And you can't go back on it. It's kind of like that analogy of measure twice, cut once, or what I like to say, measure once, cut twice. But it's kind of like the same thing there. I think on Monday with the Mercury-Uranus trine, there is this kind of insight that comes about, but I don't know how good that is, if that makes sense, with the Saturn-Uranus square. But here's the thing. We're going to talk about the Saturn-Uranus square as we kind of go throughout the week, but like, the Saturn-Uranus square isn't always necessarily like bad. Some of you need kind of breakthrough moments and kind of need to snap. Some of you don't need that, but again, to each their own. On Monday, Moon's going to be also trining Neptune. And honestly, I just think as Venus is now retrograde, we're starting the week off with Venus retrograde on top of Pluto. This is where, we're undergoing this value shift now. We're undergoing what has been going on since November 18th, since Venus has been in shadow. Where has Venus been transiting in your chart? What have you been focusing on? What have you been enjoying? What have you been valuing? And where are we going to go back on that? You're going to reevaluate it. You're going to look at it differently. Venus is on top of Pluto. Some of you are either tripping about some shit or some of you are on some power trips right now. And that's just the thing with Pluto. Something that I've talked to a lot with other people that I just think a lot of people can relate to right now is just the amount of fear everyone is experiencing right now. Whether it on both sides of everything. Pluto is that fear. And I could riff on this all day long. This is a great time to change your relationship to fear. This is a great time to change your relationship to fear. But either way, I think as we start the week with Venus being retrograde, this Mercury trine Uranus, there's some type of insight. But with the moon in Cancer, still trining Neptune, there's this emotional sense of kind of like knowing what needs to be done. Something I really like about the Capricorn Cancer thing is like, in order to get needs met, there's a system, there's a plan, there's a structure, there's a rule book, right? Anything in the moon, while the moon's in Cancer, we're realizing what our needs are. But as it's trining Neptune, again, I wonder how much we're ideal. Like again, the Mercury Uranus trine is like, oh, this is inventive, but the moon Neptune trine is kind of like, is this what we need? Moon in Cancer trining Neptune and Pisces, like, oh, yes, this is exactly what I need. Ooh, it feels so good. And that's fine. A lot of you should enjoy that. Just don't get too caught up in it. But I think Monday is kind of interesting as far as, again, Mercury trining Uranus, getting ready for the Saturn-Uranus square. That brings us into Tuesday. And on Tuesday, that's when we're going to be having the sun ingress into Capricorn. Moon's going to go opposite Venus and Pluto at the same time, essentially. Then it's going to ingress into Leo and trine Mars. So kind of a lot going on Tuesday. Not a bad day, in my opinion. I kind of really like Tuesday. So the big thing here, number one, sun enters Capricorn. Winter begins. Did you store all of your like nuts like a good squirrel, or did you, I don't know. I would just think with the sun in Capricorn, winter is here. It's going to start getting cold. It's already cold, but Capricorn being the beginning of winter, right? Cardinal signs initiate things. We're starting to begin something here. While Sagittarius season was much more of an ending, it was much more of a closing. Capricorn season, we're beginning something new. But this time, the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn, is squaring Uranus. So plus we're going to have that Mercury retrograde square Uranus, plus we have Venus here. Just a lot of things are starting to fall in place right now to kind of get set up for what January has to offer. And I don't know if I've said this enough on my YouTube channel lately, or maybe my weekly horoscopes, but how much change is happening in January. It's one thing after another. And so this is laying out the groundwork for that right now. Yes, Venus is already retrograde, but like we still have more to kind of go. But I think as the sun enters Capricorn, the sun is our ego for one. So our ego is going to be much more attached to this Capricorn way of doing things of, it's wintertime. We got to be serious and, shut off emotions and, it's cold and, that type of stuff. But the sun also is like energy and life force. And this is where all the planets revolve. So there is this huge focus on the Capricorn area of our life. But with the sun is a luminary. The sun's job is to light up things, right? So there is the sense of lighting up this area and actually taking a look at it. Now that Venus is retrograde, now that Mercury's there. But on Tuesday, the moon is going to be also opposite Venus and Pluto. And I think this is really when the Venus retrograde hits, because we get that first aspect to Venus. We finally get an actual planetary aspect to Venus. And it's in opposition with the moon, right? That moon in Cancer, opposite Venus retrograde in Capricorn. Are you getting what you need? Like, well, the other thing too is I think Venus retrograde in Capricorn on top of Pluto is like, what about the rules are changing? We can go into the analogies of how this is so relevant with the current times all day long. But I think on a personal level, I would ask yourself, again, what are you afraid of? And what would it feel like to get your needs met? I guess a good way to put it is I, for a long time, really put off a lot of healthy eating stuff in my life simply because I was afraid. And this is my own personal story. You may not even relate to this, but this is just a way I can analogize this. And for a lot of reasons, because I was scared. I had this fear that I was like, that I just didn't know what I was doing and I was going to fuck up. And, I just wanted to be able to like eat. And it just took me a long time to go like, all right, like I need to take care of this though. Like my body was like all types of fucked up. And I look at this moon in Cancer opposite Venus and Capricorn on top of Pluto. It's like, hey, sometimes you have to face your fears to get your needs met. And like, that's life. That is literally life. You can't sit there and let the fear be all encompassing to where you start going without what your needs are. And I think this is kind of a check of like, hey, are you like, well, this Venus and Capricorn, the way that things are, the way that, trying to do things by the rule book, is that working for you? And is that getting your needs met? And I think as Venus is retrograde, opposite that moon in Cancer, is like, no, I don't think it is. Maybe we do need to change the way things are. And here's the reality. At this point, a lot of you have probably already undergone a lot of these changes, right? But when you undergo change, like, you're setting up a domino effect, and you're going to see more of this come up, right? This is just, it's a process that we're all kind of going through. And I think Tuesday's really about kind of checking yourself of like, is this what you need? Is this what yes, we could talk about is this what you want, but is this what you need? Is this taking care? Is this nourishing yourself? What is nourishing yourself? Don't sell yourself short. And it's just this Venus on top of Pluto. It really does come down to like, are you going to be afraid or not? And well, especially too, like, are you afraid to break the rules? Are you afraid to go against the grain? Are you afraid to challenge things? As we get to Tuesday, through Tuesday, the moon will then also ingress into Leo. So let me bring this up. I like this a lot. The moon's going to ingress into Leo on Tuesday. And that's like, hey, I think we need that check of like, hey, am I getting my needs met? And then it's like, well, have you ever like, again, you were so afraid to do something and then you finally got the balls to do it and you did it and you're like, wow, that really wasn't that big of a deal. Why was I so scared of it that whole time? That's this. Moon goes into Leo and we're like, we're the shit. We're great. It's trining Mars and Sag. Mars and Sag is now flying away from the South Node. So it's actually starting to gain some momentum. It's actually starting to feel a little positive. Mars and Sag, we're actually starting to like, feel that fire energy. And I think the moon trining Mars is like, hey, that's a confidence boost. And like, look, we could talk all day long about how these are like, everything's in Capricorn and Aquarius, and this is really hard, but this is very ambitious energy. There's something very ambitious about Capricorn. It's a Saturn ruled sign, but it is Mars's exalted sign, right? There is this sense of wanting to accomplish. There is this sense of like when you have authority, when you have control, when you have systems in check and all the needs are being met, like it feels good. That's the Capricorn way of doing things, right? The very tangible way of doing things. And I just think this is Tuesday looks like, at first kind of like making sure your needs are met, checking yourself, and then after that, going into pretty much a really good day, in my opinion. Maybe it'll be later in the night that the moon goes into Leo and trines Mars, but this is, I think, exciting. I think this is feeling a sense of empowerment or a sense of courage. And again, I think it's just about making sure your needs are met. And I think that's going to be good. We need that kind of check and we need that encouragement too, as we get into Wednesday. So as we get into Wednesday, moon is going to go opposite Saturn and Uranus. Wednesday is just that. And well, that also kicks us off into Thursday, but Wednesday is just the moon opposite Saturn square Uranus. I know that's not a lot, but when that's the only transit, let's actually just do this. When that's the only transit that's going on, it's a little rough. Look at that. That's like, first thing in the morning. It's 10:30 here Pacific Standard Time. It'll be like 1:30 over there in the East Coast. Moon goes opposite Saturn, squares Uranus. That's like almost immediately. Hold on. Okay, I almost sneezed and I didn't. Whoever said bless you before I sneezed, thank you. Anyway. The moon is going to go opposite Saturn and then immediately square Uranus, right? So like what I look at when I look at the Saturn-Uranus square, that's showing like a little bit of a unevenness, right? Like this uneasy, unsettling energy, right? So when you get like a little moon transit here and there or a little Mercury transit here and there, it kind of, it matters, right? When things are very, like a little bit over here, a little bit over there, it's kind of like Jenga. It's like, is that tower going to fall? Is it going to come down? And you look at this and this is, I don't want to say explosive because the moon, what's funny is the moon leaves this trine with Mars and then it hits Saturn. Like, to be honest with you, some of you are going to be really gassed up and going to be like, I'm the shit. I need a cause, like really stir shit up. That's fine. Live your life. But this moon in Leo opposite Saturn in well, for one, Saturn in Aquarius, this Uranus and Taurus. So like this moon in Leo, sometimes you have to put like your pride out there. Like you have to put your individual self out there. And like the moon in Leo opposite Saturn in Aquarius is like standing up to authorities, separating yourself from certain situations. The Saturn Uranus thing is this. Here's the deal with the Saturn Uranus square, and that we're going to talk about this going into Thursday. We've been doing this all year long. This isn't going to be anything new. This isn't anything unexpected. Not that it won't be shocking, not that it won't be a big deal, but it's not coming out of the blue, right? So I think this moon in Leo is kind of aggregating this or aggravating the situation a little bit. This moon in Leo, our pride going opposite Saturn Aquarius, be like, I'm just going to do me and fuck everybody else, and squaring Uranus where it's a very sudden decision. Again, some of you need a breakthrough moment. Some of you don't. Some of you don't need things to be randomly, suddenly shocking and change. So the thing is, for some of you, you need to like really check your pride and your ego and like, hey, where are you going a little bit extra and far and out? But the other people, a lot of you also need to fucking say something and stand up for yourself and rock the boat. You know what I mean? It's Saturn square Uranus. With Saturn square Uranus, this is not the time. Like, interpreting the planets is not about mental gymnastics of what it means and how it's Saturn square Uranus. What is stable and what is consistent is facing this unpredictable, unstable force. So clearly this isn't the time where stability is really a good plan. Like if you're being like, I want things to be locked in place, I don't want to change, it's going to be hard. But like if you are thinking about jumping ship, if you're thinking about changing things up, yeah, this is a great time for that. You know what I mean? So it just looks like to me, a lot of Wednesday is, well, also too, here's the thing. Yes, some of you need to check your pride. Yes, some of you also, the one thing too that I would really say is when you have like the moon shining Mars, then it goes opposite Saturn, your emotional energy is so sacred. Like you can't pour it out into everything. And you got to ask yourself what's worth your energy and what's not. And I think this moon in Leo opposite Saturn and Aquarius is definitely kind of like identifying that. Venus is retrograde, right? I talked about going against the rules, going against the grain, and this moon in Leo opposite Saturn and Aquarius is like you might have to kind of face that, if that makes sense. Have you ever made a change in your life that was so subtle that you didn't realize it, and then it was like later on you kind of had to realize like, oh wow, I did change that. I did, and you kind of had to like address it. That could be a lot of this, and that will. And look, it's the moon's going to square Uranus right after it. It's going to be like, again, if you're trying to hold everything together right now, then there's that might make things worse almost. Because fixed signs, Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, they don't bend, they break. So, but you got to do what you got to do. I look at this and I look at all of this stuff, guys, and like you got to understand this is about your life. Like you got to do what you got to do, regardless of what that is. You like make decisions for yourself, but like you got to do what you got to do. And I think this moon in Leo opposite Saturn is like maybe bygones are bygones, but this is definitely addressing something that might shake things up quite a bit. That brings us into Thursday. So on Thursday, we actually have the Saturn-Uranus square, and the moon's going to be opposite Jupiter all day long. That's not necessarily bad. I actually kind of appreciate the moon being opposite Jupiter all day long. But here's the deal. This is not, for some people, this will be a big deal. For others, it will just be doing something random. Like for me, for example, I've done my best now this is me saying what I think might happen to me in the future. Who knows what's going to happen to me in the future with this? Saturn's also my Time Lord right now, right? And I haven't had the Saturn-Uranus square happen to me yet as Saturn is my Time Lord. So we'll see what happens to me. But I've been using this as doing something that would be like a forever change, like Saturn and Aquarius, right? Like a long-term change, and just kind of doing it randomly. I talked a minute ago about fear and how fear is just so I feel as if fear is the like the highest currency that is available right now, especially on internet spaces. And you know, we could sit here all day long of like when you want to make a change, you're like, oh, it's got to be the right day. I got to get the right astrology, or you know, this is happening, and sometimes you just have to throw the dice. Like sometimes, so I love so the Saturn Uranus square. I've talked about this a while ago, and this might be like triggering for some people. But the first vaccine that was ever introduced was during a Saturn Uranus square. And also there's a Saturn Uranus square going right now, and you know all the vaccines, right? There's something so like, well, if you know about the story of how the original vaccine went, this dude pretty much just said, "Fuck it, we're gonna try this shit and we'll see what happens." And lo and behold, you know, of course, vaccines change pretty much the whole world after that. And I think there's also something to say about the vaccines being put out right now that's a very kind of fuck it, vaccines, everybody. The Saturn Uranus square, there's something so fuck it about it. And I apologize if you're getting offended by my language. I've tried to do better about not cussing anymore. But like sometimes you just got to roll the dice. Like right now with Saturn squaring Uranus, there are no safe there's no safe investments. There's no safe bets right now. So you might as well do the risk. You know what I mean? In a podcast that I just did with Joe Brown of Heresy Financial, which will be posted, I don't know, it'll be posted after this. You guys will see it later. It's already on my Patreon. But he talked about like risk can never be like averted, it can never go away. It can only be like put somewhere else. And I love that he said that because that's something that we talk about in astrology. Like when it comes to electional charts, you know, you're going to have the bad astrology somewhere. It's about where do we put that though? Where is a manageable place for that? And the Saturn Uranus square is like, you know, you're going to have you're always going to have risk. This isn't necessarily about taking a leap of faith and changing everything and throwing away it all, but like take a risk. Fuck it. There's not like there's a lot of stability being offered right now. Like so many of you are like thinking about quitting your jobs and you're all over the place. Saturn's going like if you're betting on the security or the safety, like it's not there. Like it's not. And you got to just do what you got to, again, you got to do what you got to do and what's going to be in best interest for you and your family and your life. But I feel like the Saturn Uranus square is like, again, now, I think the big difference with this one is Uranus is retrograde and Saturn's direct. And this is what's interesting, is Saturn is in the superior position, right? And Uranus is retrograde. There's this sense of trying to contain the ups and downs, right? Uranus is extreme ups and downs. Uranus is instability. It's in Taurus, right? So there's a lot of uneasiness. Nothing's grounded right now. There's a lot of, invention around Taurus stuff, right? Like our food, like that's getting all super crazy nowadays. But Saturn squaring Uranus is like, if the ground is unstable, what do I have to do in order to circumvent that? Like what position do I have to take in order to not be at risk for this? So, if Saturn was retrograde and Uranus was direct, it'd be like something random's going to happen to you and you're not going to see it coming and oh no. And like, that's not even really that bad. Sometimes random things are good, but this is much more of like you trying to control the craziness in your life and being like, this is what I have to do. This is my responsibility. No one talks about Saturn and Aquarius and about responsibility. Sometimes you got to be the one that owns up and that takes care of shit. You got to be the one that initiates and makes a decision. And Saturn and Aquarius, like you got to be the authority. You got to be the one that takes that does the thing, right? You got to be the executor. So just the biggest thing is on Thursday. You're going to see it's how do we mitigate the craziness? You're on like all this instability, this ups and up and down stuff. Like how do we get a better grip on that? How do we get a better control over that? I think that's what a lot of Thursday is, right? The moon is going to be opposite Jupiter all day. So there is this sense of looking at the bigger picture. The moon in Leo, Jupiter in Aquarius, kind of like, all right, how do we integrate this? Jupiter in Aquarius, again, is like trying to make the bet. Jupiter in Aquarius is like, everything's fine. It's good. But Jupiter, you know, in Aquarius is trying to be like, hey, there is a good side to this. There is a hope. We just have to, you just got to have to go through this moment, right? And I think this moon in Leo opposite Jupiter is like, dude, straight the fuck up. This is the holiday season. Like, it's not, I told people this is going to be a shitty Christmas. And like, if you're having a great Christmas and everything's life, fucking appreciate that, because my God, are people suffering out there. And this is shit. Like, to be honest with you, these are hard times, regardless of whatever. Like, it's just, I've seen this manifested so much for people. And, you know, if you're like, Cameron, I don't know what you're talking about, life's great for me. Well, that's awesome for you. And you should really soak that in, because it's not always going to be that way. The holidays are incredibly stressful for people. And I think the biggest thing is there's so much of like, accepting that there's so much bullshit going on. And I think that this moon opposite Jupiter is like, you got to see the bigger picture, and that there's hope. Things might suck right now, but things are changing. Things are going to change. And I think this moon in Leo opposite Jupiter in Aquarius is like, you got to pump yourself up. You got to be the one that sees the bigger picture. Like, taking responsibility and owning up to certain things is definitely hard, right? But there is this sense of, again, this Venus on top of Pluto. What's so hard about talking about this is right now with these transits, like Mercury's going to go over Pluto a few times, and then we're going to have that Mercury retrograde, and Saturn squaring Uranus. You got to be the one that kind of like, well, again, in an emergency situation, are you going to be the one that kind of checks out and that can't help? Well, it's like one of those things, like when you hear about natural disasters or emergencies, for example, and you see the Good Samaritans that want to help, and then they get hurt because they don't actually fucking know what they're doing. Or let's say, for example, other people, well, it's like, are you going to be I don't want to say in the way, because I think that's not necessarily true, but don't go out of your way to be a problem, right? Like, stay in your lane. And I think the one thing is, though, in those situations, are you going to be not there, or are you going to be checked in? Well, it's like a lot of people think they're like, oh, well, it's like the meme of like the fat American guy on the couch being like, oh, you watching football and be like, oh, I could fucking run way faster than that guy. And if, oh, he would have done that. It's the same thing. And I think a lot of that also like that same idea of, oh, I could always do better, but you've never been in that position before. I think that's a lot of what's kind of going on right here. I think also too, when it comes to like responsibility and taking care of shit. And I think with all of this fear stuff going on, with all of this Pluto stuff going on, it's like, you gotta check in. You gotta check in. If you're gonna check out, it's gonna be hard. And like, look, you know, that's your decision. And I don't blame you. It's a hard winter, but this is going to be a very difficult time, I think, to check out. And I think hard times require when you see hard astrology, it's not about being like, oh, this is the time to celebrate and relax. It's like, no, like hard times require you to be to do hard, like if you want to get hard things done, do it during a hard time. Don't do easy things during a hard time. Do the hard things during a hard time. Get it out of the way, right? And do the easy stuff during the easy times, the fun stuff during the fun times. What do you have to do that's hard? And like, what do you want to do that? Like, again, Saturn squaring Uranus is like, sometimes you just kind of have to say, fuck it. We are at the end of the year. How many of you are wanting to change something in your life? And we're at the new year. It's the one time of the year where everyone's got an opportunity to do something new with their lives for like everyone's on board with. New year, new you. I know it's corny. I know, but like, I'm a big believer. I've changed a lot of my life, a lot of things in my life by doing a New Year's resolution. I'm a full believer in that. What do you need to change this year? What do you need to change this year? How much longer can you go doing this stuff, doing the same thing? How much longer? What needs to change? And like, and honestly, start now. Start before the new year. Get the ball rolling. And I just think you got it. Like, there's just this Venus on top of Pluto, man. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid of changing things up. You can't be afraid of because again, it's all encompassing. And just like every fear you've ever faced in your life, and you realized it wasn't that big of a deal, and you realized, why were you so scared? And then you actually stood up to your fears, and then you got all of that power, and you started to feel empowered by that and not afraid. Like, that's just the same thing. So if you're just, it's I don't know. I look at this and this is a very real transit. Very real. These are very real fucking times. So we're going to be looking at the big picture with the moon opposite Jupiter, and we get into Friday. The moon's going to go into Virgo square Mars. That will be a little frustrating, but it's Christmas Eve. Happy holidays to everyone. It's so funny. I always forget to mention a holiday whenever it happens because I'm never thinking about it. But the moon will go into Virgo, and I like this because everything's like in the earth signs, and Virgo and Aquarius, kind of the same thing, kind of like how Libra and Pisces are kind of like the same thing. But Virgo, like the moon in Virgo, us wanting to be organized, see things clearly, count everything. It's kind of like, do you ever feel better when you kind of like touch all your stuff and like just kind of like get the physical sensation of like, okay, everything's here, everything's in order. And like, you ever see people with like anxiety and they kind of like have to touch everything to like get it out of their system? That's very moon in Virgo, right? And I look at the moon in Virgo opposite Mars in Sag. You guys have heard me say this analogy before. Like Mars and Sag is just trying to go. Like Mars and Sag is like, yo, we need to go. Moon and Virgo is like, do I have my water? Do I have my sunscreen? Do I have my, trail mix? Do I have my hat? Do I have my, like, and Mars and Sag is like, you don't need that shit. You don't. Mars and Sag is like, we're going to go anyway. And I think is that moons and Virgo squaring Mars, it's a two-way street like most things are, right? Like nothing's ever just one way. Mars and Sag for a lot of people, for a lot of you guys, is like wanting to avoid, wanting to run away. Maybe you guys need that. I'm a big advocate of that. Sometimes you need to get out of your head and go away and then come back to kind of get things straight. But for a lot of people, it's like running away and avoiding stuff. That moon in Virgo squaring Mars is kind of like, let's actually get a little bit clear on, like, maybe it's kind of like when you ever try to avoid something, but then like something else happens in your life that like just hits you in the face of like, yeah, okay, I'll stop running away and I'll focus on that. That's kind of this. But for other people, the Mars and Sag is like, yo, you just need to go and you don't need to worry about all of the little specific details. You just need to go. Keep going. Keep going. Like you'll figure it out as you go. Mars and Sagittarius. It's not about tracing your steps. It's not about it making sense. It's not about it. Oh my God, I could talk all day long about Mercury and Jupiter and how. So I was just talking to Hugh Tran about this last night. Jupiter, Jupiter's all about abundance, right? And Rhetorius talks about this and I've said this before, I said this in my Jupiter video, Mercury's about rationale, Jupiter's about abundance. And rationality is opposed to abundance. You can't think about it. There are no answers. Like Mercury's opposite Jupiter. Whenever you try to rationalize this big stuff, it's not going to work. Same thing when you try to, make the most idealistic thing out of a very rational thing, it doesn't really work. You just have to believe it. You just have to take a leap of faith. You know what I mean? And ask questions later. Figure it out later what it was. But that Mars and Sagittarius, you just got to go. You just got to do the thing. And again, Mars and Sagittarius is, well, when you're riding a bike, the first time you ever ride a bike without the training wheels, or let's say, and you're just going, right? You're not worried about stopping, right? Or for example, that like, it's in the movies, if someone like tries to fly or something like with an umbrella and they're like, oh my God, I'm flying, but then they never think about landing, right? That's fine. You don't need to worry about landing right now. That's a whole nother story, but you just need to worry about taking that jump and just going, right? Figuring out landing later. So the moon's going to square Mars and, just don't overspecify stuff. And then we get into Saturday. And the big thing with Saturday is it looks like there's a lot of stuff, but it's not. Venus will just actually hit Pluto again, but this time retrograde. The moon will make a trine to Mercury. It will go opposite Neptune and then trine Venus. So it's just more lunar transits. But these lunar transits are, I think, kind of exacerbating this whole Venus retrograde thing. Because as we get to Saturday, yes, Venus is on top of Pluto. So again, do we remember what it was like? What was that? Not last week, but the week before that was when the moon conjoined Venus on top of Pluto. And it was like, woo, it was really wild. We're going to be revisiting that. And what's cool is, again, re-looking at that moment sometime last week of like, or the week before that, I should say. What were we afraid of? How did we manage that fear? What did we do about it? And what about our relationship to that is changing? What about what we value out of that is changing? And it's going to look different for everybody, right? You got to see where this is at in your chart. But the moon's going to be trining Mercury on Saturday, which I love. Moon in Virgo, trining Mercury in Capricorn. Get it done. Well, I mean, this is Christmas, so I don't know. Maybe some of you aren't doing it. Well, as far as a Christmas day goes, I don't know how great this is, but because again, like Venus on top of Pluto retrograde for Christmas, maybe there's not a lot of Christmas presents happening. But I think this moon in Virgo trining Mercury in Capricorn is at least there's. I look at the moon in Virgo trining Mercury in Capricorn as a lot of things starting to click, a lot of things starting to make sense. When you read, like, there's something so tangible and so crystal clear about Mercury in Capricorn trining moon in Virgo. Like the communication is so clear. It's so clear. No miscommunication. But then the moon is going to go opposite Neptune, where there is this sense of like everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm checking off my list. Am I seeing everything? Because that Neptune and Pisces, like moon in Virgo opposite Neptune and Pisces, like, I don't know. Do you see it all? It's like that sense of like, it's like the hypochondriac thing of like Virgo Pisces is like, if I do all this stuff, I'll be healthy. But it's like, wait, did I wash my hands all the way? Or did I do this? Did I do that? It's, are you seeing all of the picture? And I think the moon opposite Neptune, you know, be careful kind of glossing over some of the details, like definitely look into it. But, you know, like, hey, you could, it's like when you're driving in the fog, you can only see how far you can see. Like, and if you really can't see all that, you know, far past where you're driving, like, then go a little bit slow. I think that moon opposite Neptune is like, you know, you could check your, like, you could bring all of your stuff for a hike that you want, that you could plan for, but like sometimes things like happen that you can't foretell and you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to cross that bridge when you get there. I think the moon opposite Neptune though is kind of like stressed out about like trying to figure that out. Like, don't worry about it. And then the moon, after it goes opposite Neptune, it will start to apply to a trine with Venus. This is where I think, you know, Venus retrograding Capricorn, there's so much material to this, like straight up, like there's so much about this that's very material, like that's very about material things in people's lives, right? These are all earth sign stuff. I find that challenging to kind of always navigate with people when it comes to like tangible material goods. But moon shining Venus in Capricorn, I would assume, you know, Venus retrograde, it's past Pluto. We're really looking at, you know, a lot of these fears. We're really looking at a lot of this, you know, our relationship to it, how we're doing things by a certain system, how we're doing things by a certain rule book. And I think that moon in Virgo trining Venus in Capricorn is maybe realizing where it can change, getting a little bit of clarity on things, seeing things very straight line. Again, like I said, that moon trine Mercury is maybe receiving a message that's very clear. And then as that moon goes opposite Neptune, you go like, am I seeing this the right way? And then the moon shines Venus and it's like, well, now that you've took in this information, you're going to start, you know, more context with the Venus retrograde. You're seeing things differently. You're looking at things differently. Your relationship to things is changing. So Saturday's weird. I mean, again, there's it's Christmas, but there's also so many other things happening with it. That leads us to Sunday. Sunday we have Mercury sextiling Neptune. I put that as a highlight. And then the moon's going to ingress into Libra and pretty much apply to Saturn for the rest of the day. Looks pretty cool. I kind of like Sunday, to be honest with you. Mercury sextiling Neptune, kind of like it, to be honest. It's very idealistic. Well, it's kind of like, I don't know. Well, I kind of think of, sometimes I think a lot about how like Henry Ford and the whole production line and how like simple that was and how huge that made things. Mercury sextiling Neptune, you know, we're our mindset, the way that we're thinking about things, it's all about, you know, plans. It's all about this ambition, this starting thing, the starting this new thing. Mercury sextiling Neptune is maybe having like a visionary or idealistic way of seeing it, a creative way of seeing it, being like, thank you, Neptune. Oh, it's like, I don't know. Have you ever like read something online that was super random that totally like, I don't know. Like, again, this is a kind of a harder, like a weird transit where, to tell you the truth on a specific thing, how this is going to manifest, just like everything, it's going to look specific for every single one of you. But I would assume this is much more of a kind of seeing things through a more idealistic, rosy sense, and maybe that helping you clear things up a little bit. But it's nice. It's end of the day, it's a nice transit. It's all you guys need to know. But then the moon goes into Libra, and we'll pretty much be trining Saturn. So I like this because the moon being in Libra is, hey, Let's work things out. I want balance. I want peace. I want things to be in order. And as it's trining Saturn, it's like, okay, now that we've gotten this all cleared up, now that we understand what's changing in this Capricorn area, now it's time to kind of address Saturn, right? Moon in Libra trining Saturn is like, you know, the defense addressing the court or addressing the judge, right? It's like, hey, this is how it is. This is what's going on. What do you think? The moon's also going to be like sextiling Mars during that same time too. So I think Sunday there's a sense of kind of like negotiating, working things out, being able to get the right ideas with the right momentum to get things going. I do like Sunday. And really Sunday is, I think, Mercury sextiling Neptune again, being able to communicate things in a very creative way, maybe. Moon in Libra trining Saturn is definitely trying to like negotiate and work things out. Seeing side to side, bringing things in the middle, really. And that's Sunday. I mean, that's how we kind of end the week. Kind of a weird note to end the week on, but I want to talk about next week, because holy shit, next week we have Jupiter going into Pisces. We have Mercury conjoining Venus and conjoining Pluto. Then Mercury will enter shadow. Then Mercury enters Aquarius. And then we have the new moon in Capricorn. So like I said, we're going to have, we had last week, we had that full moon, the Venus retrograde. That was crazy. And this week, it's just really the Saturn-Uranus square. Yes, Capricorn season starting, but it's the Saturn-Uranus square. Something's going to change very randomly. It's going to be, and it's, maybe you just need to take a risk. Maybe you just need to like kind of do something that you've never done before, right? Face a lot of, and there's going to be a lot of facing fears this week, but that's something that we're going to continue to do for the next couple of months. Next week, though, Jupiter goes into Pisces. We have all of that faith coming in. I think hope will be restored in a big way, which is, I know, shocking to say. I'm really like, I'm kind of putting a lot of my chips right now on Jupiter and Pisces being pretty kick-ass for a second. Actually, well, for a minute, even though things might be really rough, I think things will also be good on another note. But the Mercury shadow, the Mercury Aquarius, the new moon in Capricorn, so much like that new moon in Capricorn and Mercury entering shadow is like, that's going to be the whole story of January all the way to February. So it all starts next week. I mean, like we're in the middle of things the ball's already starting to roll. Momentum's already starting to gain, and it all really starts to get really fast starting next week. And then after that, but anyway, that's what I have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for being here. If you like this video, please give me a like. Tell me what your thoughts about this week are below. I want to know too what the Saturn-Uranus square has been doing for you guys. What was it like in January? What was it like in May? For me, I won't even get into it because I could talk all day about how it's changed my stuff. But I want to know how it's affected you guys in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you next week.